In the 1960s, Bob Crane appeared to embody the American dream. With his bright smile, quick intelligence, and natural charm, he became a household name as Colonel Robert Hogan on the hit sitcom Hogan's Heroes. Week after week, audiences watched him lead with confidence and humor, turning a clever script into something warm and memorable. Off-screen, he was widely regarded as friendly, approachable, and endlessly entertaining, a man who seemed genuinely grateful for his success. His rise felt effortless, the kind of career many actors only imagined. Yet fame often hides complexity, and behind the applause, Crane was navigating pressures few could see. The contrast between the joyful image projected on television and the quieter struggles unfolding in his private life would later shape how his story was told. At the height of his popularity, however, Bob Crane was simply one of television's most beloved stars, admired for his talent and charisma. From radio waves to television fame, before becoming a television icon, Bob Crane had already earned respect in radio, particularly in Los Angeles. Known for his sharp wit and remarkable ability to improvise, he hosted a popular morning program on KNX, where his lively interviews and humor attracted both listeners and celebrities. He moved effortlessly between impressions, conversation, and comedy, earning praise from some of the biggest names in entertainment. His radio success eventually opened the door to acting opportunities, including guest appearances on popular television shows of the early 1960s. These early roles revealed a natural screen presence and strong comedic timing. When the script for Hogan's Heroes arrived in 1965, Crane initially misunderstood its tone, but once he grasped the clever blend of comedy and strategy, he recognized its potential. The series became an instant success, running for 6 seasons and firmly establishing him as a leading television star of his era. Life under the spotlight. The success of Hogan's Heroes transformed Bob Crane's life almost overnight. His face appeared on magazine covers, promotional posters, and television screens across the country. He earned award nominations, steady income, and public admiration that few performers ever experience. Yet sustained fame also brought expectations and pressures that slowly altered his personal world. Friends and colleagues later recalled that Crane seemed restless, eager for stimulation beyond the routine of filming and publicity. Like many performers who rise quickly, he struggled to balance public demand with private fulfillment. His personal relationships began to feel the strain, particularly as his career required constant travel and long hours. To the outside world, Crane remained cheerful and professional, but those closest to him noticed subtle changes. The gap between the confident entertainer audiences adored and the man behind the scenes quietly widened, setting the stage for challenges that would follow him into the next chapter of his life. A private world takes shape. During the mid-1960s, Bob Crane developed a strong interest in photography and emerging recording technology. At first, this was simply a creative outlet, a way to explore new tools and satisfy curiosity. Over time, however, this interest became increasingly central to his private routine. His friendship with John Carpenter, a professional familiar with advanced recording equipment, grew out of this shared enthusiasm. Together, they spent long hours experimenting with technology, often while traveling for work. While some viewed this as harmless fascination, others felt Crane was becoming distracted from his career and personal responsibilities. The hobby seemed to consume more of his attention than before, subtly shifting priorities. What mattered most, though, was not the technology itself, but how this private world created distance between Crane and those closest to him. His life began to feel divided, with a public identity and a separate, tightly guarded personal space that few fully understood. Marriage, change, and consequences. The pressures of fame and personal conflict eventually took a toll on Bob Crane's family life. His marriage to Ann Tertzian, his longtime partner and the mother of his children, ended after many years together. The separation marked a significant emotional turning point, reshaping his sense of stability. He later remarried, hoping for a fresh start, but unresolved patterns followed him. At the same time, his reputation in Hollywood quietly shifted. Industry executives grew cautious, and roles became less frequent. Although he continued to work steadily in theater and smaller productions, the level of attention he once enjoyed faded. Crane himself seemed aware of this shift and spoke to friends about wanting change and renewal. He expressed a desire to simplify his life, rebuild professionally, and move forward with greater focus. Tragically, before he could fully redefine this next phase, events would take a devastating turn. The final days in Arizona. By the summer of 1978, Bob Crane was living temporarily in Scottsdale, Arizona, where he was performing in a dinner theater production. Approaching his 50th birthday, he appeared reflective and determined to regain balance in his life. Friends later recalled conversations in which he spoke about making changes and distancing himself from parts of his past that no longer felt healthy. On June 29th, when he failed to appear for a scheduled meeting, concern quickly spread among his colleagues. What followed shocked the entertainment world. Crane was found deceased in his apartment, the circumstances immediately raising questions. There were no signs of forced entry, suggesting he had felt safe with whoever had been present. The loss was sudden, deeply unsettling, and painful for those who knew him. Overnight, a beloved entertainer was gone, and the focus shifted from his career to an investigation filled with uncertainty and sorrow. An investigation marked by challenges. The investigation into Bob Crane's death faced difficulties from the start. Local authorities, unaccustomed to handling high-profile cases, struggled with evidence management and scene preservation. These early missteps complicated efforts to establish a clear narrative of what had happened. Attention soon centered on individuals who had spent time with Crane shortly before his death, particularly John Carpenter. Circumstantial evidence raised suspicions, but technology at the time limited what could be proven conclusively. Without definitive forensic results, prosecutors initially declined to bring charges. Years later, advances in investigative methods prompted a renewed examination of the case, leading to a trial in the early 1990s. In court, arguments focused on relationships, timelines, and imperfect evidence. Ultimately, the jury found the case insufficient to establish guilt beyond reasonable doubt. The verdict left many unanswered questions, and the case returned to uncertainty, officially unresolved and emotionally unfinished for those seeking clarity. A family's burden and public memory. For Bob Crane's children, the years following his death were marked by grief and frustration. The trial and media coverage placed intense focus on their father's private life, often overshadowing his professional achievements. Personal matters were discussed publicly, reducing a complex human being to a narrow and sensational narrative. His sons later spoke about the pain of watching their father's legacy become defined by speculation rather than accomplishment. They emphasized that he was a devoted parent, a gifted performer, and a man capable of warmth and generosity. Efforts were made to restore balance to his story through books, interviews, and public statements, but the shadow of the unsolved case remained. Even so, those who worked with Crane remembered his humor, discipline, and professionalism. The gap between public perception and private memory became one of the family's greatest struggles, a reminder that fame often distorts how lives are remembered. Legacy beyond the mystery. Decades later, Bob Crane's story still resonates, not because of scandal, but because of its human complexity. He was a talented entertainer who brought laughter into millions of homes, helping define an era of television. While the circumstances of his death remain unresolved, they do not erase the joy he created through his work. His performances on radio and television continue to reflect skill, intelligence, and genuine charisma. The tragedy lies not only in how his life ended, but in how easily a single event can overshadow a lifetime of achievement. Remembering Bob Crane means acknowledging both his imperfections and his contributions, without reducing him to one unfinished chapter. His story serves as a reminder that public figures are more than headlines, and that legacies deserve to be shaped by the full measure of a life, not solely by its most painful moment.